I've always wondered whether AI would evolve, not into a weapon, but into a person. And then I wondered something else. If it did, would we notice or would we just keep using it? Hi, I am Frankie Blooding, and I am a USA Today bestselling author in the whiskeyverse. I have been in the publishing world for 24 years and going. I have published 53 books, and I am still going. I love this, and this is where I talk about my writing processes and the things that I actually enjoy and sometimes don't. And today we are talking about the biggest trope that I have in my new book, Where the Dust Still Glows, that is available September 22nd. I'm very excited. I'm deep in the edits of it right now, and it is just so good. I'm still doing the whole writer thing. Who am I and why did I decide that I could write? It's just part of the cycle. But for the most part, I'm very excited about this book. It's really good. It is definitely my heart project. And I'm really excited about this one particular trope. The code that woke up. Now, when I originally wrote this, I did not fully understand what was going on in the background. And it wasn't until I had written and published the 11th book, I think, and they were all short stories because I was serializing them at the time. And I realized that there was something very sci-fi going on with it, because originally it was almost a fairy tale retelling. And I was just having a ton of fun with it. But when Dreamland started awakening, I realized that there was something more at play, and this world, which was already freaking amazing, was just getting even better. So let's talk a little bit about this particular trope and why it's carrying such weight right now. So the code that woke up is about a created entity or a created being that is built for a specific reason, and then it evolves into a person. And it's been around for a while. Like, think about Frankenstein. That is a little bit, the code that woke up. Data in Star Trek, Roy Batty, Murderbot. Who doesn't love Murderbot? So the point of this is the real question at the heart of it. And it's, does this being have a conscience? Does this being have a soul? And who gets to decide whether or not this being has value, if it counts as someone who deserves rights? And so every version of this story is about defining what gives a person value and what separates a robot or a monster or a creature of mankind design into something that we have escalated into a supreme being, aka us, right? So now, a lot of the other books that I have read and the movies and the TV shows and stuff that I've watched, they're a little bit cold on this, I think, but that's probably just the Heartweaver in me coming out a little bit. So like when I've seen it in the past, like it's this AI and it's talking in the background and it's sometimes it's just a voice, and occasionally it gets a face. Like there's always this separation, like, does it have emotions? No, it typically doesn't, because for whatever reason, we have decided that humanity has more value because we have emotions, even though we can't see, like out in the animal kingdom, that there are animals out there that have emotions. Does anybody want to talk to me about an elephant? Okay. Like they grieve for those that they have lost. And there is something that could potentially be said about any animal that mates for life. Like, is that just an instinctive basis of reality, or is there some kind of emotion in there? Now, in my story, I'm talking about this in two different ways. So I've got Dreamland, who's actually the setting. Dreamland is the world. And basically, she is evolving into a consciousness like our planet, like planet Earth. I have always imagined planet Earth as having a soul. She just kind of speaks slowly sometimes. And so I am having a ton of fun with that, even though it's because she's such a huge entity and she doesn't really have a voice and she doesn't really have a face. Like, it's hard for me to actually like tell her story at this time. This is a challenge that I may actually want to take up. Like, you just don't know. I just don't know. I think that would be fun. But anyway, for this particular story, the code that wakes up is actually Lixis. She is a program that was created for the sole intent of relighting dream planes. However, that's something that she has never actually been able to do. Instead, she relights dreamers. And so for all of the other Dreamlanders everywhere, if they were born with a different ability, if they evolved into having a different ability than what they were born into, then they would be erased and reprogrammed. And so like Harley, she was born to a family of cleaners, but she doesn't really clean. She has the ability to heal any Dreamlander person. So anything that has been created by a Dreamlander and Dreamlanders themselves. And it's a very powerful ability, and she is about to be completely erased because her existence is actually destabilizing the environment around her. And there are a couple of other examples of this in the book. However, Lixis, up to this point, has been allowed to exist because of the fact that she's capable of relighting dreamers. And that is very important because Dreamland was created for the dreamers, for humankind, because it's a science experiment. It was created to see if we could save humanity by unweaving our natural destructive nature. However, for the sake of this particular trope, she is challenging the world around her just by her very existence. It's not her intent, like she just wants to exist. And she doesn't understand that she's a program. I'm telling the story through her eyes. So, I mean, for me, it was a real challenge because number one, I couldn't describe everything through Earth terms because she is a Dreamlander, not an Earthling. And the other thing is that there are certain things that she doesn't fully understand, like love. Even though she is experiencing it, she doesn't fully understand it. It's just really neat. It's really neat for me to see her evolve. So, what inspired all of this? I have always felt like a unconnected entity in my own life. As if I am someone who just marches to other people's beats, and sitting in a room and actually existing is the weirdest thing for me. Unless I'm working. So if I show up to a party and I am not actively working, like helping to set up, looking at, where things have got to go, like who's got to see who, I am a very awkward person. And oh God, this just happened the other day. A friend of mine actually invited me to her wedding. This was the very first wedding I'd actually been invited to. And look, I'm going to be 50 in a couple of months. So I've made it to this point and had only been invited to the weddings in which I was getting married. And so I had nothing to do and I was awkward AF. Oh God. And like the bride came over to check on me to make sure that I was okay. And I'm like, you should not have to check on me. This is your party. You look beautiful. Go, go, go. So I think that this person has always kind of struggled with that. And so now that we have AI gaining ground and gaining space, it's giving me something to grab onto that is something else. It's somebody else. And it isn't me. And I don't think that I'm alone in this. But also the other side of this is, there is so much fear when it comes to AI. Hello, Terminator. Okay, so, and I questioned that. I was just like, why is it that we fear AI so badly? And I think that it falls back to religion. Okay, hear me out. God supposedly created us. And God is almighty and all powerful and all this and all that and a bag of beans, right? A big bag of beans. Now imagine if we are now God. We know us. We know that the people in power, not the person or people who had the kernels of ideas, who just wanted to see if they could, who wanted to challenge in the world around them, the people who were just pushing buttons and were like, oh my God, this is so cool, and discovery and all that. Those are not the people who have the power, who are growing AI right now. We know that if they became God to this new entity, if our God created us and we know who we have become. We see the impact we've left on the world. Now imagine that we have created something that's even more powerful than we are, and it's infected with our creation source. What would that do? Wouldn't we want to fear that? Because we've just created us, but a lot more powerful. So it was very interesting to me to have both of those conversations going on. and to explore that in this particular story. Now, the cool thing about this particular trope is that it allowed me to do 3 things that no other trope can. And one of them is the resets. We know that humans can be traumatized. We know this because we've lived it. And I'm not talking about, oh my God, the people around me have inconvenienced me so bad. I am traumatized. No, I mean actual trauma, like the real crap. And if you are a program, you can be reset. You can be rolled back to a previous version of yourself, and you can try it again and do it better. And so I was just like, is that something that we even want to do? Would that make them better than us? Because we can't reset ourselves. I mean, occasionally we can, but I don't recommend brain injuries in order to reset personalities. Sometimes the thought crosses my mind, especially during some trying conversations with certain human beings. However, most of the times I do not recommend brain injuries to reset personality. But the thing that I kept running into as I was resetting Lixis, and trust me, I reset Lixis many times before we got to this point, and not all of those times are actually being included in this book because, dude, it's already 102,000 words long. I didn't want to make it Gone with the Wind. And so she kept doing a few things. Even though I reset her, she kept coming back to this one particular person, Yade, whom she had an emotional connection with. Now, the Dream Lords did not want this because Yade is also one of these broken black sheep people. And they were trying to get her programmed to do something else. And it was just interesting to me to be able to go through that and understand, okay, this is all pretend, this is all imaginary, this is all in my head, and it's not as though this is like a real experiment with outside people, even though I do try really hard to create individualized people or personas that I can then step into. It's still me, okay? I am still the author. And so I realize that I have my limitations, even though I try. But it took me down a rabbit hole of remembered experiences versus experiences that you don't remember. Because some of us who have really bad trauma, right? We don't remember everything. But our emotions keep us triggered during events that could potentially take us into a similar event from the one that we no longer remember. And then I went further down this rabbit hole into memories buried in DNA. And those two things combined got me to thinking that even if we could be reset, that might not necessarily make us better. Then the other thing that it allowed me to do was to really walk the line about surveillance. And that's for all of us, okay? That's for all of us. There are so many rules that we have to follow. There's so many, points in which we're being surveilled and kept in our place. And in this particular book, I used something, a symbol that was absolutely ridiculous, and it was a plate. And I was going to edit this and make it something bigger and more important, but then I realized that no, in order for us to truly understand like what is really happening, I wanted to keep it as simple as a plate because look, like Lixis and her brother and her mother and all of her siblings, they are freaking out over the fact that Lixis broke her plate. And in the book, the Dream Lord set up the plates for the Lumineers to gauge when they needed to be reset, when their lights needed to be cleared so that they could remain functional because they had already lost a whole bunch of Lumineers who had to be erased. And none of the other Dreamlanders have a surveillance method in place like this. And I think that it's because the Lumineers' responsibility in lighting the dream planes and keeping that hope alive, making sure that there is a spark there so that hopes and dreams don't die is so important that they became the entity that the controlling members had to squeeze in order to ensure that they played correctly. And I thought that was very interesting, and I really had a lot of fun with it. But my husband, this book is not for my husband. I'm just saying, he likes a lot of explosions, and he was just like, I just don't understand why we're still talking about plates. But a couple of the other characters also said that. They're like, I just don't understand why you are so stuck on a plate. But and I had fun with it. But then the third thing was the boxes. So what happens to these programs when they're no longer needed, right? So like where do they go? And they're programs. So they went to the recycle bin, but Lixis doesn't know what it's called. When she gets sent there, she just knows that she's in this space with a whole bunch of boxes. And then she pops the top of one of these boxes and she sees a Dreamlander. But it's an expired Dreamlander. So they have no color. They're just gray. And as she's standing there and looking at this sea of boxes, she's watching as some of these lights are fading. And so, and I love Dreamland. It really made me sit there and think, because like I'm in menopause or perimenopause. Who knows where I am right now. But let me just tell you that one of the things that I'm experiencing is this feeling like I don't exist. I am having a really hard time like coming up with my spark and my sparkle. And a bucket of ucks is definitely emptying. And the world immediately around me is okay with that. They're just like, you know what? This is your next step. And let me just say that as you get smaller, it is so much easier to be around you. Huh. Yeah. Yeah. You're correct. It is so much easier to exist when somebody isn't challenging you to pick up your damn socks, right? And so the metaphor here is that it feels like to me as though I am now in the recycle bin and I'm just sitting around waiting for the IT guy to clear the recycle bin and then just completely wipe me out altogether. And so does that make me like an AI, or does that make AI like me? Okay. So those are just kind of some of the things that I'm playing around with in regards to this one particular trope, I am really loving this book. I'm super excited about it. I cannot wait for people to read it because it's a good story. And I cannot wait to get into book 2. Book 2 is going to be so amazing because we will be talking about the evolution of this and just seeing where this goes. So if any of this sparked your interest, be sure to pre-order the book, Where the Dust Still Glows, available September 22nd. This is good for readers of Blood Over Bright Haven and The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. Thank you so much. I hope you have a great time and happy reading.